The breaking news here in New York, the two are divorcing. The court filing one day after Page Six reporting the Trumps have been living separate lives.
7 years. That's how long it took for the silence to break, for whispers behind closed doors to finally erupt into a statement that left everyone stunned. Vanessa Trump, the woman who once stood by Donald Trump Jr.'s side through fame, fortune, and political firestorm, has finally revealed what really tore their marriage apart. And it's nothing like the headlines led you to believe. This isn't just a tale of divorce in the public eye. This is a story of betrayal, manipulation, and a woman who walked away from one of America's most controversial families with her dignity intact. The reasons she's revealing now aren't just personal, they're damning. From the cracks that began during the reality TV era to the explosive Trump presidency that changed everything, Vanessa has stayed silent, until now. What really happened behind the golden doors of Trump Tower? What was the final straw? And why now, after all these years, is she finally speaking out? Stick around, because this story peels back the glamorous facade and shows the truth underneath. The fairy tale beginning. The glossy surface of Vanessa and Don Jr.'s marriage painted the perfect picture: beauty, wealth, and a last-name legacy that demanded attention. Yet behind the smiles and curated appearances, there were signs the fairy tale wasn't quite real. Vanessa had traded her modeling career for motherhood and the Trump brand, but insiders suggest she often felt like more of a prop than a partner. Those close to her say she struggled with the spotlight that came with the Trump name, not the cameras themselves, but the constant press smile and perform, to smile, to endure. Meanwhile, Don Jr. was chasing a very different kind of legacy. As his father rose through political ranks, he followed in lockstep, becoming increasingly involved in the MAGA movement, turning his social media accounts into battlegrounds and prioritizing power plays over pillow talk. Vanessa, who once imagined a quiet, stable home life, was suddenly married to a man more interested in trolling political enemies than tucking in his children. Their home life was reportedly cold, transactional, and eerily quiet. Staff members noticed they rarely shared intimate moments or even conversations. Vanessa spent much of her time parenting alone, attending school events, and trying to shield the children from the chaos swirling around their last name. Don Jr., on the other hand, seemed perpetually on the road, at fundraisers, rallies, and high-powered dinners, often surrounded by admirers but emotionally detached from the woman he once wooed. There was no dramatic blow-up, no headline-making scandal at first, just a slow, painful unraveling. The fairy tale hadn't ended with a villain or a betrayal. It was something far more insidious, two people who no longer recognized the life they'd built together, slipping further apart with each passing day. It may have looked like a dream, but in reality, it was a silent descent into a cold, lonely kind of normal. The pressure cooker. The Trump name comes with a heavy crown, and for Vanessa Trump, that crown was made of steel and expectation. Marrying into the Trump dynasty meant playing a role, one with little room for personal identity or emotional vulnerability. Vanessa, who had once thrived in the low-key glamour of modeling and cherished a quieter lifestyle, was suddenly expected to become part of a political spectacle she never signed up for. As Donald Trump's 2016 campaign gained momentum, so did the pressure inside the Trump household. Don Jr. was no longer just a businessman or a husband. He was now a frontline soldier in a political war, constantly on TV, stirring controversy on Twitter and attending rally after rally. And while the world watched him charge into battle, Vanessa was expected to stand behind him, unwavering, smiling and silent. But behind closed doors, she was falling apart. Friends confided that she often felt like a ghost in her own marriage, living in a house that buzzed with tension but lacked warmth. The public performances, the appearances at events, the carefully choreographed family moments began to wear thin. Don Jr. had become addicted to the spotlight, to the praise of the MAGA faithful, and in chasing that validation, he left his wife emotionally starved. Vanessa wasn't just sidelined, she was invisible. The more Don Jr. threw himself into politics, the more isolated she became. Reports suggest that their interactions dwindled to logistical conversations about the kids or family obligations, nothing more. The deep connection they once shared had been replaced by surface-level civility and mutual exhaustion. Even insiders couldn't ignore the cracks. Staff who once worked closely with the family described Vanessa as looking increasingly detached, almost robotic, like someone just trying to survive the day. Long before the divorce papers were signed, the emotional divorce had already happened. The alleged affairs. As if the pressures of political life and public scrutiny weren't enough, Vanessa Trump found herself navigating a deeply personal storm, one that played out in tabloids and social media headlines. Whispers of Don Jr.'s alleged infidelity began circulating in elite circles, and before long, those whispers turned into damning receipts. One particularly explosive rumor involved an alleged affair with a well-known reality TV star, an accusation that, while never officially confirmed, refused to die down. But it wasn't just rumors that fueled the fire. Screenshots of Don Jr.'s alleged direct messages to various women began to surface, unprompted, flirtatious, and often shockingly inappropriate. In one widely reported instance, he was said to have messaged a model with overt compliments about her body and appearance, all while still publicly married to Vanessa and living under the same roof. The messages raised eyebrows not only for their tone, but for their timing, hitting the internet just as Vanessa was working to keep their family together behind closed doors. Though Don Jr. shrugged off the DMs as harmless and insisted they were blown out of proportion, insiders say Vanessa was devastated, not just because of the content, but because of the disrespect, the sheer public embarrassment of being blindsided by something so personal, so humiliating, and so avoidable. She wasn't just a wife watching her marriage unravel. She was a mother trying to shield her 5 children from the growing circus that surrounded their family name. And yet, instead of support, Vanessa faced silence, or worse, denial. The Trump family, known for closing ranks when scandal hits, circled the wagons around Don Jr. He was defended, protected, and given cover by his famous last name. Vanessa, on the other hand, was expected to do what she always did: smile, wave, and pretend everything was fine. Friends say that was the moment the facade fully cracked. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was public. And for Vanessa, who had already spent years putting on a brave face, it became clear that her loyalty had limits. The trust was gone, the damage was done, and the world now had front-row seats to a marriage in freefall. Money, control, and the power dynamic. In the Trump family, marriage isn't just about love or companionship, it's a business transaction. And for Vanessa, that meant navigating a web of financial control and power dynamics that left her feeling more like a partner in name than in practice. Though she came from a wealthy background, Vanessa reportedly lacked financial independence during her marriage to Don Jr. While she had a trust fund, much of their wealth was managed by him. Sources close to the family claim that Don Jr. had the final say on most financial matters, controlling everything from their lavish lifestyle to the day-to-day expenses. Vanessa, despite her role as a mother and wife, had limited control over their wealth, making her feel like a passenger in the life they had built together. This lack of agency wasn't just frustrating, it was alienating. Insiders say that after filing for divorce in 2018, Vanessa began to feel a sense of liberation, not just from the emotional strain, but from the financial restrictions that had previously bound her. No longer did she have to ask for allowances or check in about spending. For the first time in years, she had control over her own financial destiny, something that had been denied to her while she was married. The story of Vanessa discovering risky investments made by Don Jr. only added fuel to the fire. Reports suggest that she learned of these investments, such as those in cryptocurrency, through an accountant, not from her husband. This betrayal of trust deepened the emotional and financial rift between them. She was left to pick up the pieces of a life she had little say in, while Don Jr. made high-stakes decisions without her knowledge or consent. The power imbalance in their marriage wasn't just emotional, it was financial, and it left Vanessa exhausted and disillusioned. The constant struggle for autonomy in both her personal and financial life wore her down until there was nothing left but the realization that she needed to break free. Protecting the children at all costs. Throughout the breakdown of her marriage, Vanessa Trump's primary concern was always her children. Despite the public chaos and personal turmoil surrounding her marriage to Don Jr., she remained fiercely protective of her 5 kids. In the midst of divorce proceedings and a very public family drama, she made it clear that her silence about Don Jr.'s behavior wasn't out of respect for him. It was out of love for her children. Vanessa understood the power of the media circus and how every word, every headline could affect the mental and emotional well-being of her kids. Behind closed doors, sources say Vanessa went to great lengths to shield her children from the chaos and dysfunction that seemed to follow their father. While Don Jr. was making headlines for hunting trips and controversial social media posts, Vanessa was focused on creating stability and normalcy at home. She didn't want her children to grow up surrounded by scandal or to be tainted by the unpredictable behavior of their father. The stress, the arguments, and the public fallout were kept behind closed doors, out of sight from the children. Vanessa's decision to remain silent, even in the face of a divorce and countless rumors, was a deliberate choice. She knew that any public attack on Don Jr. would only bring more attention to their family's fractured state, and she didn't want that for her kids. To her, the image of family unity was something that still needed to be preserved, if only for their sake. The appearance of togetherness became a shield, a way to provide her children with a sense of normalcy even as their world was crumbling. But as her children grow older and begin to understand more about their family's legacy, Vanessa's need to remain silent has begun to shift. She now feels it is time to speak out, not to attack, but to clarify her story. Her silence, once a protective measure, is no longer necessary in the same way it once was. Vanessa's desire to set the record straight stems not from a place of bitterness, but from a need to ensure that her children hear her truth and to protect their future from being defined by misrepresentation. For Vanessa, it's no longer about protecting an image. It's about protecting her children's understanding of who they are and who their family truly was. Why she's speaking out now. For years, Vanessa Trump stayed silent. Through the divorce, the public scrutiny, and the swirling rumors, she chose to protect her children and shield her family from further chaos. But now, after 7 years, she's finally speaking out, and there's a clear reason why. According to sources close to her, Vanessa reached a breaking point. She had spent years watching the narrative of her marriage and divorce being controlled by others, particularly Don Jr. and his public persona. As he continued to make high-profile appearances and reignite political controversies, she began to feel that the truth, her truth, needed to be told. The polished version of events that the Trump camp often pushed out was far removed from the reality of what had happened in their marriage. Vanessa didn't want the public to only see the version that was convenient for Don Jr., especially when so much of it was distorted or one-sided. But there was more. One of their older children, now old enough to understand the complexities of family life, reportedly asked Vanessa why their parents divorced. That question, sources say, was the catalyst that sparked Vanessa's decision to finally speak out. It wasn't just about setting the record straight for the public. It was about explaining things to her own children. They deserved to hear her side of the story, to understand the reality of their family dynamics without the filter of media speculation or the influence of a family legacy that had often overshadowed her voice. Vanessa isn't out for revenge. She's not writing a tell-all book or planning an exposé media tour. Instead, she's quietly opening up to close friends, advisors, and even journalists, sharing pieces of the truth that had been kept in the shadows for so long. These private conversations have gradually found their way into the public domain, but Vanessa is careful about the way she reveals her story. For the first time in years, the narrative is shifting. Vanessa, who had spent so long as a passive observer, is now in control of her own story. She's steering the conversation, reclaiming her voice, and ensuring that her children and the world understand the truth behind the headlines. The post-divorce transformation. Since the split, Vanessa Trump has kept a low profile, but those close to her say she's thriving. She's reconnected with longtime friends, focused on her children, and even quietly returned to business endeavors that she'd put on hold during her marriage. One insider described her as lighter and liberated. She's also become more protective of her privacy. While Don Jr. parades around with his new fiancée, Kimberly Guilfoyle, Vanessa has chosen to stay grounded and close to her family. There have been no scandals, no paparazzi fights, and no tell-all interviews until now. And even in revealing the reasons for her divorce, Vanessa's tone has remained calm and measured. No shouting matches, no mudslinging, just honesty, and a desire to be heard finally. Don Jr.'s reaction. Don Jr.'s reaction to Vanessa's decision to speak out has been nothing short of furious. While he hasn't made any public statements yet, sources close to him say he feels blindsided and betrayed by her choice to share her side of the story. For Don Jr., who has been working to establish himself as a key player in the post-Trump political landscape, the timing couldn't be worse. His image is carefully crafted, and any narrative that deviates from the polished version he's built threatens to derail his ambitions. But it's not just the timing that has him upset. It's the break in the unspoken rules of the Trump family. Loyalty and silence are deeply ingrained in the Trump ethos, especially when it comes to personal matters. Spouses particularly are expected to stay loyal to the family name and keep quiet, regardless of what's happening behind the scenes. By speaking out, Vanessa is breaking both of those rules. She's no longer the silent, smiling partner she was expected to be, and the Trump family reportedly views her decision as a betrayal. Rumors of private confrontations, heated phone calls, and even legal threats have surfaced, but Vanessa doesn't appear to be intimidated. In fact, sources suggest that she's resolute, approaching her decision with calm precision and confidence. She's prepared to continue down this path, regardless of the backlash from her ex-husband or the family. If anything, this could be just the beginning, as Vanessa seems ready to finally reclaim control of her narrative, and nothing, not even the Trump family's influence, will stop her from telling her truth. What this means for the future. Vanessa's decision to speak up might have more ripple effects than we realize. For one, it shatters the illusion that the Trump family operates like a united front. It also opens the door for others, like Melania Trump or even Ivanka, to feel empowered to share their truths, should they ever choose to. More importantly, it puts the spotlight back on Don Jr.'s behavior, not just as a political figure, but as a husband and father. The public may have grown used to Trump family drama, but Vanessa's calm, deliberate approach to truth-telling is shaking things up in a different way, and people are listening. After 7 years, Vanessa Trump has done something few in the Trump orbit ever dare to do: speak the truth. No flashy interviews, no revenge tell-alls, just a quiet reveal that speaks louder than any scandal. Her story isn't just about a failed marriage, it's about reclaiming identity after being silenced, protecting your children from chaos, and refusing to play along with the facade of perfection. Vanessa's courage in finally confirming why she walked away from Donald Trump Jr. sends a powerful message, not just to the public, but to anyone stuck in a toxic relationship behind a glittering mask. And with Don Jr. continuing his high-octane political journey, this bombshell could change everything. Could there be more revelations to come? Is this the beginning of a larger unraveling of the Trump family narrative? We'll be watching. If this story shocked you, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next twist in this ongoing drama. Because when secrets spill, there's always more just around the corner.